Welcome back to the journey back in time. In the 1600s, where we are standing, London was already one of the largest cities in Europe, with a population approaching 500,000 people. While most of the world still consisted of quiet countryside, London was already a living entity, developing at a breakneck pace, shaped by the intersection of international trade, the hustle along the River Thames, and muddy, narrow streets. However, what we know about it often remains only within dry history books, or silent woodcuts by John Vischer or Wenceslaus Holler. They lack life. In today's journey, we will perform a special experiment together. By using the power of modern artificial intelligence tools, I have tried to breathe life into these ancient works of art. AI allows us not only to observe, but also to change perspectives, shift the camera, and step through the gates of time to witness scenes that the very original artists 400 years ago never had the chance to execute. My goal is to recreate the past in the most authentic way, a true, lived space. Join me as we step through the gate of time. The journey begins right now. The first destination, and also the most magnificent symbol that I want to show you, the Old London Bridge. To be honest, before starting this journey, I didn't think it would be so overwhelming. Look closely. This is not simply a bridge to cross the river. If you look from afar, you will see it is more like a long street floating above the water than a bridge. It connects the City of London with the Suffolk Bank. The entire length of the bridge is filled with tall houses, shops, warehouses, and even a chapel. This crowding is so perfect that if you walk on it, you will forget that you are standing above the River Thames. Look up above. The buildings here can be as tall as 7 stories. Do you see how the upper floors jut out? They block out the sky, turning the roadway below into a dark and narrow tunnel. The residents who live here have to endure a never-ending noisy symphony. The sound of cartwheels grinding on the stone, the cries of merchants, and the roar of the water right beneath the floorboards.
Southward for 1 penny.
For them, this is the most expensive real estate, but also the most dangerous place. Fire is a constant obsession. Now, look down under the bridge. The grandeur above creates disaster below. The bridge is supported by 19 narrow stone arches and enormous protective piers. This structure unintentionally works like a dam, constricting the natural flow of the River Thames. When the tide rises and falls, the difference in water level creates extremely powerful whirlpools. Boats that want to pass here must face death. People at that time had a proverb. The bridge was built for wise men to go over and fools to go under. Many rowers lost their lives here. However, this very blockage created an interesting phenomenon. In the harsh winters of the Little Ice Age, the slow-moving river caused the surface to freeze. At that time, the fierce river turned into a gigantic playground. The frost fairs sprang up right under the bridge. People roasted meat and skated right on the surface of the river. A rare moment of peace, in contrast to the usual danger. Leaving the foot of the bridge, let us drift along with the current. The River Thames is the red thread of this journey. If London Bridge is the backbone, then the river is the lifeblood. In the 17th century, the roads in London were very bad, muddy and narrow. Therefore, the River Thames became the city's main highway. Look around our boat. you will see all kinds of vessels, from heavily loaded barges, passenger ferries, to enormous merchant ships just returned from the ocean. And weaving between them are the small boats of the watermen hired rowers. They are like taxi drivers today. This river carries everything: grain, firewood, cloth and coal from Newcastle. Right here, local life collides with global trade. Spices, silks, and the first coffee beans also docked here. Pay attention to both banks of the river. The grandest mansions and the most splendid palaces all face the river and have their own private wharves. This confirms a truth: whoever controls the river holds power. Now, let the river carry us a little farther west. I want to show you a place with a very familiar name, but a completely different form. In front of you is Buckingham House at the end of the 17th century. Long before it became the famous Buckingham Palace as it is today, at first it was only a private townhouse. Look, it stands apart from the crowded urban core, surrounded by open land and gardens. At that time, this location marked a clear boundary between urban London and the countryside beyond. It was a reminder that, even as the city grew denser, its physical limits were still very clear. A complete contrast to the suffocating crowding we just passed through at London Bridge. But that peace was very fragile. 17th century London was built on a fragile foundation, and in September 1666, that fragility turned into tragedy. Everything began with a small spark at a bakery on Pudding Lane. But that summer was too dry. The east wind blew strongly, and London was built of wood. The city quickly turned into a gigantic furnace. Look toward Ludgate. The fire did not only burn down homes, but also attacked directly the greatest symbols of power. There is old St. Paul's Cathedral. Its square tower is under threat. Before long, its lead roof will melt, and the stones will explode from the heat. Now, change your viewpoint to the other bank of the River Thames.
We must cross the river now.
Near Tower Wharf, the scene is truly horrifying. London appears like a continuous wall of fire stretching for more than a mile. On the left side of the frame, London Bridge is glowing. And on the right, look, the Tower of London narrowly escaped. The fire stopped right next to the cold stone walls of the fortress. More than 13,000 houses and 87 churches were burned down. But, like a cruel paradox of history, this fire became a turning point. It swept away the filthy slums, the seeds of disease. From the ashes, a new London would be reborn in brick and stone. These AI images show us the final moments of a wooden era that was lost forever. Rising out of that devastation, still standing firm by the River Thames in the east, is the Tower of London. In the 1600s, this was the centre of royal power. It was not only a defensive fortress, it was a vast arsenal, the national treasury, and a mint. But most frightening of all, it was a prison. The most important political prisoners, those accused of treason, were held behind these thick stone walls. It was also the place where the crown jewels and the royal regalia were kept. Its survival after the fire was like a statement. Even when disaster strikes, the foundations of English state power cannot be shaken. To understand more clearly what was lost in the fire, let us turn back time a little, to the year 1638, and go deep into the heart of the city. Welcome to Cheapside. If the River Thames is the highway, then Cheapside is London's living room. This is the busiest commercial street. The splendid scene you are seeing is the procession of Marie de Medici as she enters the city. Look along both sides of the street. The fountains, the crosses, and the timber-framed houses, with their upper floors jutting out the distinctive architecture we saw on London Bridge. Right in the centre is Cheapside Cross, a familiar meeting point for the people. But do not let this glitter fool you. Behind the flags and ceremonial dress is extreme tension. Queen Henrietta Maria, being Catholic, together with her foreign origins, made the people afraid. At that time, the city was drifting toward the parliamentarian and Puritan side. These magnificent processions were in fact only a cover for a society that was cracking. A London standing on the threshold of a brutal civil war. Today, if you go to modern Cheapside, all of these medieval landmarks have completely disappeared.
Continue our journey upstream to the west. The year is 1647. We arrive at the Westminster complex. This is the moment when England is most deeply divided. Look from left to right. On the left, the old Palace of Westminster, the seat of Parliament. By the mid-17th century, this place became the focal point of conflict with the king. Right next to it is Westminster Hall, with its enormous wooden roof. This once symbolized the king's patronage. But now, it became the place where that very power was put on trial and challenged. On the right, Westminster Abbey, the spiritual heart of the nation, the place of coronations and royal funerals. But in 1647, the Abbey was also standing on the edge between tradition and violent religious upheaval. And look at the very center of the frame, Westminster Stairs, the Westminster landing steps. This is the busiest entrance. Every day, the River Thames brought politicians, clergy, messengers, and even ordinary people straight to this threshold of power. The river does not distinguish class. It connects poor slums with luxurious corridors of power.
We are drifting toward the final stages. Behold the Palace of Whitehall in 1643. This was the main residence of the royal family, the largest palace in Europe at that time, with more than 1,500 rooms. From these steps facing the river, kings often arrived by gilded barge. Once again, it confirms. The River Thames is the main road of power. But sadly, most of this splendor was destroyed by another fire in 1698. Today, only the banqueting house remains as the only surviving remnant. And the final stop, farthest upstream, Richmond Palace. Located on the outskirts, it provided fresh air, far from the smoke of the centre. It was a favourite retreat of the Tudor dynasty. It was here that Queen Elizabeth I breathed her last. Over time, this palace was dismantled and sank into oblivion. Today, its traces lie only beneath modern streets. But thanks to AI, we can see those towers rising into the sky once again. Standing here, looking back at these moments, it is hard not to feel that the past is very close to us. These streets, these buildings, even though they turned to ash, even though they were replaced, they are all pieces that shaped the world we live in today. London in the 1600s was a city full of paradoxes, crowded but full of opportunity, filthy but magnificent, fragile before fire, yet possessing a powerful ability to be reborn. Through these reconstructions, we do not only see it, but we also, in some way, live that atmosphere again. Technology is not only for entertainment, it is a bridge that connects the distances of time. Our journey upstream along the River Thames pauses here. If there is another city, another historical moment that you want to see brought back to life, let me know in the comments. I would love to continue building these time travel journeys with you. Thank you for coming along. Goodbye and see you next time.